Oh, wow. Hmm. I am doing my. I hit start and didn't realize. Yeah, recording. Good. Uh, my third uh, episode. However, there's a bit of a gap. I'm trying to still figure and navigate everything here. Uh, at this point, what has changed since I spoke to you last? Well, been some success in the political world. Everyone was saying, I had somebody say it to me, like for instance, Trump, this is just a perfect example of the left wing media. Trump went to Scotland to open his new golf course. Well, yeah, he went to sign the EU deal and perhaps timed it perfectly to check on his new golf course, which was smart, in my opinion, if that's what he needed to go there and do. I mean, the man's still doing a little bit of business. Seeing as he's not taking, and he didn't the last term, a single paycheck for doing his presidency, whereas everybody else takes a paycheck, and then they do all these book deals, which is why now, let's see, Biden got a $10 million book deal. Harris has come out with hers, 107 days, which is, I'm sorry, that's funny, 107 days. Do you know how many days most politicians put into trying to become president? It's not days, it's years of work. And it was just kind of plopped in her lap, as was the vice presidency, as they needed a candidate who fit all these little, I won't use the word, but far left check boxes. And she fit all of them because when she ran just on her own, and she actually got into a fight with Biden, which is why Jill did not like her at all. Probably not till the very end. She probably didn't, but she had to be civil, or maybe towards the end because she was nice and friendly seeming in some of the events more so than in the beginning. She was clearly cold towards her. Maybe she started feeling a little bit for her. I don't know, but she got into it with Biden, and she did not have a single solitary vote win for her when she ran for her own presidency. And then Biden ended up picking her as VP. She's now said she's not going to run for governor of California because she knows she wouldn't win. But this is a little book deal, which is going to get her touring around the United States and it's getting her some money. Not 10 million, but they speculate like 5 or 4. And then she can start setting up her um, basically uh, presidency campaign if she's going to run again, which is such a big mistake in my opinion. But you know what? Do it. The Republicans will win again. If she thinks she's going to win, though, it's just going to be more. I mean, she should just go retire and have. She did more than most. She got. I don't know. I don't know if she would say she got further than Hillary. Well, yeah, because she was actually in the White House as VP. Hillary never was a vice president. Um, Another thing that's come out about Hillary during all, some are saying that because of the Epstein files, that the Trump, people are releasing now the Russia collusion stuff that happened during his first campaign that Obama had pretty much triggered the investigation of. And it's saying there was no Russian collusion and that they actually showed that there was issues with Hillary because of her uh, mental faculties were very concerning. And I actually saw a video. It's her. Them trying to load her into a van comes out of nowhere, not one of the typical Suburbans or what have you SUVs. This is a get her in the vehicle and get her out of here. And she's passing out, almost falling over. And they said one of the medical issues was her having bouts of rage. Yeah, I think we already knew that. And passing out. Just random passing out bouts. So, yeah, she would have made a great president for sure. Even though I think of, old school Democrat times was the last time. Bill was during the last time. I think the Democrats really were on top of their game. Even with Bill in the background, she won't listen to him. I think she bosses him around. I mean, I actually saw it was on Friends. They were making a joke to Chandler and Monica. His boss said, let's make a toast to the president and her husband, Bill. LOL. No, they didn't say LOL. That wasn't popular yet. Not in 1990. I don't know what year that episode was from. Late 90s. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought they were saying it back then and it's still talked about now. So, yeah, that's what's going on in the political world right now. And then there's the new, I don't know if anybody's watched White Lotus, which it's a good show. There's 3 seasons. They're working on a 4th. The first season had that Sweeney chick who's now in the new American Eagle ad. When I was growing up in school, oh God, there was all kinds of ads like that all the time. Calvin Klein really was one of the first blue jeans ads where they, I mean, big ones up and just like with her. At Times Square and wearing just a pair of jeans and no top with, the face in the back side of them. And nobody cared. Didn't care what color their hair was or color their eyes were. It's just the left young. I mean, I think part of it is, I think I might have said this already on here. When I was in high school, I had said to my friend that technology and just social media in general was going to be like the beginning of the spiral for everybody, because so many things just, people are sheep. I'm going to keep saying it, sheep. That people see it on there, and it's the Gen Zers are like leading the front. And I think that maybe it's not the same parenting that went on when I was growing up. My parents were much more involved, hands-on, go out and play. Don't just go play video games to pass the time. And more so now, not saying all parents that are my age, that are millennials, have done this. Not at all. But a lot kind of have let their kids be raised with playing video games and technology and going online. And it's just not the same as it used to be. I mean, I ran into my 8th grade English teacher a few years back from the TC school system, and she remembered me, and she said, this group of kids is just very different than when you were still in school. It's just, she said, it's their mindset's so different. I have to pretty much beg to get something out of them. And in my class, I remember too, it was a lot of work. They even warned my elementary. There's a bunch of elementary schools all came together to join to one big junior high, and then eventually move on to the high school. They said this group is exceptionally advanced for their age, and they were right. We were all taller. I mean, 7th graders that were the height. We looked like seniors, some of us. I mean, I was already, by the end of 7th grade, I was 5'10". We all just were very mature. I mean, there was kids in an elementary school. I know this goes on now, but back then it didn't go on this often. Worrying about pregnancy. I mean, it was crazy. So in any case, back to where I was at. American Eagle ad. Abercrombie & Fitch was actually way more of a promoter of the, let's get somebody, I don't know how many famous people they necessarily got, but they did do a lot of ads of jeans and nudity. In fact, I remember walking into the store one time, and they didn't sell black, which bothered me. It was one of the reasons I didn't really shop there very often. And they were way overpriced. Maybe they're not now. I don't even know if they're still around. But I know American Eagle and Abercrombie & Fitch were together. They had sitting a big stack of like 100 of these, practically like when you get a phone book and there's like a pile of them and they're handing them out. But they were color photos, and it was their catalog that had come out for that fall. And I went to pick it up, and they're like, you have to be 18 to look through this. I'm like, okay, it showed my ID to look through your catalog. I seem to remember that. Don't quote me on it, but I do remember, because there's a lot of nudity in it. And it costs like $50 or something to purchase. And I look through it and I go, nobody's wearing clothes. In fact, nobody's wearing clothes in any of the photos on the walls in here. It was very misleading. But in any case, so back then, you just did stuff like that. Nobody cared. Not really. And I think some of those things people should have cared a little bit about. Because it didn't make a lot of sense on advertising. Let's make pictures of beautiful, thin people wearing nothing to sell our clothes. I guess it worked because that place was so popular. I remember walking by, you could smell Abercrombie. As you went through the mall, you knew you were getting close because you could smell the perfume. Because every morning they went around and sprayed uh, the store. In fact, I know all this because my sister, her friend, his brother worked at the store, and everybody that went by, he looked like one of the models, and she hooked me up with him. They convinced us to go on a date, and he was going to school to be a doctor. And we went on a couple dates. He was an ex-Marine. He's a very nice guy, but just didn't feel anything. So, but he's the one that told me they'd go around the store spraying the colognes and perfumes first thing in the morning all over the place. There's probably a lot of stores that do that. I myself, one of my first jobs uh, actually my first job was at an arts academy, and it was an outdoor job at the arts academy, uh, and well, a world-renowned arts academy too. Great, like an arts academy. And I used to not tell people what I did too. I'd say I worked at the store. I cleaned up garbage with a broom and a little bucket, and I'd sweep it up. But and I had to ride my bike there, even though we lived about, I don't know, 5 minutes drive. It was about 5 mile bike ride. But that was the deal. If I wanted, when my parents moved, they were building a house. Well, they were adding on to the house they bought, which is now just down from me. If I wanted to have a horse, and we were getting horses for my sister and I, my mom already had one. I had to prove that I could work and be responsible and get a job. I was 14 years old, and so I did. But then later on down the road, when I was older and had a license, I had my second job at Hudson's, which then became Marshall Fields, which then, after I was gone, became Macy's. I liked it when it was Hudson's. And, yeah, I don't remember spraying perfume around that store. But I do remember that you get a headache when you work at those stores your first day, second day. All the chemicals in the clothing. It's a lot. Anyway, so back to the whole sweetie thing. I don't know. People are saying it's Nazi this, Nazi that. I don't like that word. It should only be talked about. We should only hear that word in English class talking about World War II. And because of her looks, and also something about the genes and women being this and that. I honestly, I haven't gotten too far into it because it seems ridiculous. And that's what's going on the political front. Most things are going pretty phenomenal when it comes to Trump. But I don't want to talk about him this whole time. So back to my life right now. I'm trying, honestly, I started this podcast for two reasons. One, I needed to change. I've been doing a job online that it's run its course and not making the money I used to, because basically the high-speed internet has now worked its way around the entire world, and some people have taken full advantage of, well, I mean, that's great that they have high-speed internet, but there's some people that I was in competition with that it just was not becoming a fair work environment. So I'm just, I needed a change in pace, and I wanted this to go financially. I would like to do something like this. There's a lot of podcasters out there that are very successful, and I am one of my biggest talents and strongest, I think, qualities is my ability to gab, and I retain information well, and I like to talk about this stuff. So I'd like to have a podcast that's successful, and maybe that could be my new line of work. But I also would simultaneously, excuse me, like to have, I've been told, I said this in my first episode, write a book. And it's really hard to focus and write a book. So maybe down the road I can combine everything and do one, because I do have a interesting life. Okay, why don't we talk about some of that? So I tell people, so I've told you, anybody that's watched this so far, I do have a pretty crazy life stories. So I'm in recovery, as I've said. Um, so one of the, I have weird stuff happen to me. Just weird things. I don't know why. So when I moved back home, I'd bought a house when I was in my early 20s. I never even rented at that point. And somebody said to me, a parent, you're just throwing your money away if you rent. You should buy a house. And my other parent, she was like, this seems a little bit too much to do for your first, just moving out of the house at, flying, you're leaving the nest. And she was right. I got in over my head. Plus, the company based everything on if I always had a roommate, which you don't always have that guarantee. So I ended up, it just was too much. But it was cool. It was fun. I was young. I kind of did it because a guy that I was seeing, he went and bought a house, and I thought, and he was just really disrespectful to me in the whole relationship, and I think I felt like I was gaining control back as far as saving face type of deal. I don't know. Immature. I was too immature to buy a house. That's not the reason you buy a house. So I moved back home after 2 years through doing that experiment. Wait. I take that back. After I got that house for 2 years, then I had a couple apartments. I take that back. Yeah, it was 4 years I was out of the house. Eventually, I made my way back home, and in 2009. And I went through a series, and I during my time owning the house, shortly thereafter, had no vehicle, living in all these apartments. Sometimes I would, but it depended on if my family, who sometimes had it, give back, or if a friend was willing to loan me a vehicle. I found a way. I got really sick of riding a bike, and I had a nice bike. I still have it. So when I moved back home, my parents helped me out. They gave me a vehicle to drive, and I started out driving a really hideous. Actually, to move from the house, that's a fun story. To moving out of the house, this is in 2007, I was given this burgundy van. As my cousin August would say, he said this story once about one of the vehicles he drove. This thing was so hideous that other cars were afraid to park next to it because they were afraid their vehicle would catch what mine had. Even my ex, who, I'll get into that maybe one time. This person I saw for many, many years that I should not have stayed with. But he wouldn't get in one time. I went to pick him up because he was embarrassed. And I said, it's dark. Nobody's going to see you. So he laid down in the back of this thing. It's not ridiculous. And I was still drinking. And I caught him doing something he shouldn't have been doing. Found out about it. And actually he had done it while I was going through I was trying to clean my act up, and I found out while I was in this center, he had hooked up with somebody, and I found the t-shirt and went to confront him, and while he sat there, didn't know what I was confronting him over, then he realized it. He saw his shirt and grabbed it from me, and I said, you're not taking your shirt back, and he called me the C word. You know what that is. C-U, yeah, N-T. I don't like that word. Which, ironically, that word, we are saying it how in another language it sounds, but if you actually spell it out, I believe someone told me it's where the two limbs of a tree come together. In any case, called me that. Well, I reached for the shirt, my foot came off the brake, and I hit his car. That's when he called me the C word. He told me I was a stupid C word driver, and I, drinking, said, well, if I'm such a bad driver, let's see if I can hit your vehicle again. And I rammed his car a couple more times until it hit the garage. Took off, went to a local bar, and I called my parents in the morning and said, you're going to find your vehicle parked at a bar, because I got a ride home that night. Initially, yeah, I had been drinking, but I wasn't toasted. Later that night, I got toasted. Turns out the brake lines had been shot on that thing. If I had tried to drive that night, it would have been I would have had no brakes. So then I got, after that, a blue and white van to drive. When I moved home. And I had cleaned up a little bit at that point. I was behaved. And then that moved on to a Volkswagen Bug, which was really fun, purple, which then elevated me to one of the Suburbans, which is what I drive now. And and then I ended up, my dad wanted the Suburban back, and I came out and there's this red Safari van in the driveway for me. A 1998, I believe. I was so horrified. It's like, I'm not driving that thing. I don't like red, first of all. It was a van, another van. I don't know what is it, my family and vehicles or vans, but I drove that thing and realized very quickly it was one of the, other than the Suburban, one of the best winter vehicles I've ever driven. It was like a snowmobile on wheels. I mean, we had a massive snowstorm here. My dad's Suburban got stuck in the driveway. His truck got stuck in my sister's driveway. My mom's Tahoe got stuck in our driveway. The tractor got stuck in our driveway. And I got to town and back and brought dinner and groceries while they all were stuck in the driveway. So that thing was great. But I did one time on my way home from town in that thing, around Thanksgiving. A vehicle pulled out in front of me. Turns out they had just left the Christmas tree farm. So they had not, that was the first time they picked up speed. They're ahead of me, and we're both about to turn, suddenly have branches going across the screen of, the front of my windshield, slam on my brakes. I thought, I hadn't been drinking yet at that point. I had a bunch of alcohol in the back. Did I black out or something, go into a field? And get out, and they're stopped in front of me. I had slammed on the brakes so that I couldn't see where they went. Turns out the Christmas tree they had purchased that they didn't tie up, didn't tie down. The second they hit 50 miles per hour, a 10-foot tree went airborne and through the front of my vehicle and totaled it. And when the guy pulled it out of the front, there's this big, huge 3-foot by 2-foot hole, steam coming out. I'm like freaking out. He goes, I think you can get it home. So I was only a mile and a half from home. I go, really? Are we looking at the same vehicle here? I was not this calm. I just remember calling my dad and freaking out. Dad, did I just say there's a guy pulled in front of me and I had a Christmas tree with the front and I was going crazy. And he goes, who is this? It was your daughter. Yeah. He goes, how do you do these things? I hit 4 deer in 1 year when I was in high school. 4. 1 year. Anyway, so I have just weird things happen. So I'm one of those people who can say, yeah, I hit a Christmas tree. Well, actually, technically, the Christmas tree hit me. Now, when I see a car in front of me with a Christmas tree tied on the back or on the top, I get away from it because I just don't trust that they did it right. You got to tie those things up. Yeah, that was a fun night. It was freezing outside. The guy did let me sit in his truck. He was almost home. Kind of felt bad for him. I mean, he went home with a bunch of pieces, and the family was waiting for him to come home with the tree so they could decorate it. Yeah, but turns out also, one of my parents' employees, who was multi-talented, he was from, I think he was from Ukraine. He said, he's very talented, very nice guy. He said, I'll fix it. He fixed it for a great amount, and when he fixed it, started getting into the bits and pieces, he said to me, you had an angel on your shoulder. I said, what do you mean? He said, you had an angel on your shoulder because that vehicle had a steel plate between the engine and where you sit that most vehicles don't have. And had it not had that steel plate, that tree would have went right straight into me and taken me out. He said, I've never seen anything like it, any vehicle I've fixed like that thing. So if I'd been driving something else, I mean, yeah, it's possible. Vans don't have a big front end, so maybe it wouldn't have been embedded so deep. But nonetheless, I was lucky I had that steel plate. And so that's just one of my fun little stories. And now I have horses right now that I've been dealing with injuries. I've taken his wrap off. He's real weak in that leg. I don't know if my horse will ever be rideable again from this tendon injury. So he needs some physical therapy. And so there's another, reason I want to get my finances and everything back in check, because I want to make sure and be able to keep my horses and take good care of them, and just, yeah. And there was a time actually during COVID where I was doing the best. Like I said, I have a job that was internet based, and everybody was at home on the internet at that time for the first year. And slowly people worked back into the public, and things still were okay for a while, but now it's just been, there's a lot more competition and not as much. There's a lot more supply with the same quantity of demand. Let's put it that way with what I've been doing with this sales job. So I'm looking for something new. And I hope that I can have a nice following and have fun chats. And like I said, I will not right now get into my ex, but I have interesting things to talk about with relationships. And actually, I have two interesting exes. Because when I was in high school, I dated a guy that was 19 years older than me. I was 17, almost 18 when we really started dating. Senior, juniorish. And he was I'm sorry, all men are kind of immature for their age that I've dated, it seems. So, maturity level wise, we were pretty even. Actually, I think I was more mature than him. I'm going to say that probably in some regards. But he was from actually a famous family, sort of. I mean, they didn't have a lot of money, but he had a beautiful house on the beach. And it was some of my fun, some of the best fun memories, the times we had together. But again, it was, you're just too young at that age to get that serious. Not to mention, yeah, big age difference. It's a little different if the age difference is, you're 30 and they're 50 or whatever, then versus a 17, 18-year-old with somebody who's 19 years older than you. 37. So, yeah. Lesson learned there. But, I remember thinking, I know more than my parents. They don't know what life is like. They're wrong. I'm right. And I know that's how kids always think. And I really thought I was right about things. They were right about a lot of things. I still stand by some of the music I listen to, but I will give them props. Some of the other music I listen to, Throwback Thursday, they'll play some songs on the radio, and I sit there going, I used to love this song. And I guess I never listened to the lyrics back then. The lyrics are awful. And I just didn't even realize that. I did. It was the beat, and it was popular dances. That kind of stuff is what attracted, when you're younger, to songs. And my parents are right about a lot of other stuff too. Thinking that, we know more than they do about, like, going out with boys. And I wish I could go and do a presentation at a high school, at my old high school, and say, ladies, this is what a boy's going to tell you. And they're going to make you think that you're number one. Of course, they're not going to break up with you. And generally, boys in that age, they want one thing. And after they get it, they can just be so hurtful. Not to say, though, all boys. There were some very nice boys, but the girls that they dated, they were courted by these boys. They were nice boys. And they waited till, some of them, I think they waited till they got out of school and got married. But, anyway, that's not like the rule. All boys are this and that. There was some very nice boys. I just chose poorly. So we'll get into some of that stuff more on other broadcasts, but I just wanted to check in, let you know I'm getting ready to do the live broadcast. That's what I'm still tweaking right now. Thank you for watching. This is, like I said, the Nicole Howard Show. Anakin, I don't know where he is right now, but he'll show back up another episode. He was on episode 2. And like I said, in the live ones, I'll be hopefully doing hour-long ones. So, that's the plan. Anyway, thank you very much. This has been fun talking. It'll be a lot more fun when I have somebody talking back so that we can take calls. Yeah, that's my hope. So, anyway, it's July 31st. Have a great day, a great night. Thank you.